Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Collision Vision podcast driven by Auto Body News. As always, I'm your host, Cole Strandberg. Today's guest is one you are likely familiar with. This is his third appearance on the show, albeit in some different capacities. Jay Goninen is the president of WrenchWay and the host of the Beyond the Wrench podcast. Today, we're going to talk a lot about some predictions for the technician shortage and the technician industry for 2024 and beyond, as well as something a bit more timely. Jay and his team are in the process of working on the 2024 Technician Pay Survey. And we're going to talk all about what that looks like, what the end result's going to be in the deliverable for the industry. But be sure to be tuned in. Be sure to share this survey with your technicians so we can shine a light on how great of a profession this is within the collision repair industry. I hope you enjoyed the show. Jay Goninen, a pleasure speaking with you again, my friend. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Always impressive with how clear you can say my last name as compared to most.
Well, thank you for that. I feel like I've had practice with this being your third time technically here on the Collision Vision. We had one where we essentially used an episode where I was a guest on your Beyond the Wrench podcast. We had one where we had you back on the show as an actual guest. And this time is a little bit catalyst driven. You're working on some very exciting, very timely things for 2024. And I want to dive into that. But before we do, give us a reintroduction of yourself.
Yeah, and I'll hit a little more cliff notes than I have in past podcasts, but my name, as you mentioned, is Jay Goninen. I am the co-founder and president of WrenchWay. I've spent my entire life in this industry, grew up in a small independent repair shop up here in Wisconsin, which I actually took ownership of at the first of the year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's been fun to kind of get back in the swing of things. My parents are staying involved with it for about 5 more years, so it's not a ton of pressure on me to start with, and it's a really well-run business that's I think in its 32nd year, and so just nice to kind of do some of the stuff that I really enjoyed about being in a shop for most of my career prior to doing the WrenchWay thing, and it allows me to have access to still be in those kind of day-to-day operations of a shop. So it's been a lot of fun. So that shop that I grew up in, I'm back involved with again, and we just continue to grow WrenchWay. And just as a reminder, if you will, of what WrenchWay is, it's kind of a few different elements, but a job board for technicians that's really focused on technicians across the country, as well as School Connect, which is very much getting industry involved with schools and trying to grow the population of people in our industry. So it's a lot of fun, that school side especially. I absolutely love the school side and helping get our industry in a better place. And at the end of the day, our mission is to promote and improve technician careers. And that's really what we do, and why we come to work each day is to try and make it better for technicians, to try and make shops' lives easier in general, hopefully give them a better understanding of what they need to do to make a technician's life easier. So just at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, trying to improve the lives of technicians.
That's it, man. And thank you and the team for continuing to fight the good fight, because it is an ongoing topic of conversation. It's getting repetitive at this point, how often we talk about the challenges among the technician shortage and everything kind of related to that. And when we connected here recently, and you mentioned some of what you're working on with your 2024, I guess now, I almost said 2023. Here we are in the new year. 2024 Technician Pay Survey. I think that's about as timely and relevant as it gets for our listener base. And I'd love to hear about what that is, what that looks like, and give us a bit of a primer and how we can help kind of make that the best it can be.
Well, I'm really excited, and I appreciate you having me on to be able to talk about this. I think it's something that for us as an industry to truly get our hands around why we have this problem in the first place, we really have to figure out where we're at, right? And I think a lot of times when you look at something like a resource that like the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts out, a lot of times their data that they put out isn't all that accurate. And that's had a really negative impact on us as an industry, because if that parent of that child that's interested in coming into the automotive world looks at, one, the investment required to even do their job, right? So the tool investment and really the barriers that really brings along with it, and then tie that to what the compensation is, you look at a kind of a low ROI on a career. And I think that's got a lot to do with why we're at where we are at, if I can say that, why we're at where we should be at, or where we need to be at. And so really to make improvements, we have to get a base level understanding of where we're at. And so we started really putting our minds together. At the end of last year, we did a Voice of Technician survey, which was really, really successful. The information that we were able to get out of that and use to eventually be able to educate shops was really, really impactful. And it was really good information. Our marketing team did a great job with that. Sorry.
I want to stop you on that, because before we move on into the technician pay survey, give us kind of a quick overview on that publication that you guys did. It sounds like some fascinating stuff.
It really was. And if anybody wants to see the actual report that came out of it, we've got it out at wrenchway.com. And there's so much good information in it. And what was really cool was that we broke it down between automotive and diesel. A lot of the content we do for WrenchWay in general includes both sides. So it includes both sectors or both pieces in our sector. And one of the things I say all the time is that in the automotive world, we kind of look at the diesel world as being behind us. Yet when we looked at the survey data that came back to us, what we found was that diesel techs were happier than automotive techs. And there were a variety of factors as to why, but let's not look down on the diesel side or any other industry for that matter, because there are things that we can learn from those other industries that will help make us better employers and make us more desirable places to work at. And really what that data over and above the diesel versus automotive response was being able to see where technicians were unhappy. A lot of it came down to pay. A lot of it came down to how they're treated and really, I think, how they want more respect. And there's just so much good in it that if you take the time to read the report, and some of it, there's a lot of data in one graph, right? And so being able to really take that information and break it down and really look in the mirror and see, are these some of the things that they're complaining about? Are these some of the things that we're maybe blindly doing in our shop? And be able to change those things. And the other side of that is if there are some major complaints that a technician has that you see in that report or anywhere else for that matter, and you look at your operation, you say, you know what, we're pretty darn good at this. That's what you should be promoting, right? Yep. And I talk about it all the time and how you're trying to get technicians in the door. If you're just saying the same thing that everybody else is saying, you're not standing out at all. So there are a lot of opportunities to see, those common complaints from technicians. And if you can spin that and really be an industry leader within your geographic region in that specific thing, I think you can really change your luck as far as it relates to getting technicians in the door. So I just think if you take the time to read through the survey, that you'll pull out a lot of information. And that was the Voice of Technician survey was so cool, but that's where it kind of led to us doing the technician pay survey, was because of some of what we learned in that survey, and that we needed to dive a little deeper into specific sections of that survey And really, that's what drove the need for this survey in the first place, was that other one where we were gathering data. And that one we had, the Voice of Technician survey, just so everybody knows, was a little bit more extensive. It was longer. This technician pay survey is shorter, and it's meant to be kind of a quick hitter of, you can come in, fill out the information, and get out of it really quick. And I'll talk a little bit later on about the incentive in doing so. But for that one, I think the Voice of Technician survey, we had about 700 responses to it. This technician 2024 technician pay survey, we're already clearing 1,500 responses. And so
wow,
we're really, really growing that. And what I mentioned in our last podcast together is we really are focused on growing that collision side as well, right? Of not only WrenchWay, but helping the industry in that side of the sector to get stronger. And we need more participants from the collision side, more collision technicians to be able to come on and give us an idea of where they're at pay wise. And we'll talk about what we're going to do with that information, but it is really, really important. And it's completely anonymous. When you come fill out the information, we don't ask for, we're not selling a list to somebody to be able to spam you with stuff. It truly is to get good data to help inform the industry on where we're at.
Well, I think so much of this is good because it shines a light on things that aren't well known. If we do a better job of reaching what we offer as a career, as an industry, we get more talented individuals going in, and that benefits everyone. A common theme with the technician shortage is, you can do some things at the shop level to fight the technician shortage on a micro level. But as an industry, we need to be rowing the boat in the same direction to fight it at the macro level. And I think providing some clarity on things exactly like this is huge. I want to get to the deliverable of what this industry report after the survey is going to look like and include, and how we as operators within the industry can use this information to better our businesses and the industry. But before that, I'd like to have you walk me through the survey from the survey participants' perspective. And before we even get there, I want to clarify, who do you want filling this survey out? This is exclusively for the technician, not the management level, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Just a note, because a lot of our listeners are management level guys. This is not explicitly for you, but please do feel free to share this with your team for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And our hope is, in our end result, is to arm all of you with better information that you can then use in your day-to-day operations, free of charge. This report will go out free of charge. And when we look for that, it is technicians, and it's meant to be very, very simple. The survey itself just asks, I think it's like 5 questions that maybe a couple more than that, but very, very simple of, what do you do? Are you in automotive? Are you in diesel? Or are you in collision? How much do you make? We do it both at an hourly basis and an annual basis. This was the timing the timing part of this worked out really, really well, because we wanted to do this at the same time everybody was getting their W-2s back, right? That annual salary is fresh in their head. So we want to know what your annual salary is, not just your hourly rate. And that's a little bit of a different concept, I think, than what a lot of people do. But we truly want that annual salary, because that's a lot of what the Bureau of Labor Statistics goes off of, right? They're saying that and this is part of it where we feel like there's some inaccuracy with it, is that they'll state that the top 10% of earners as technicians make around $70,000 a year. We talk to technicians all day long that are making double that, right? So it's not accurate at all. And so it talks about the median salary being, $40,000 to $45,000 a year. And maybe if you're putting in a lot of entry-level people, that might bring the average down. But in our experience, that's just not true, right? And so we want to be able to arm the industry with that better, more accurate information and do it in a way that I think the cool part is that I think we're going to be able to build some things off of this as well, right? So we can kind of keep it ongoing, so a technician knows as well. Where do I stand at? Am I taking care of myself here? And it's not meant to be facetious. It's not meant to be like we're not hiding anything. We're actually just giving the information out to everybody at the end of the day. So up until February 15th, that's when we're planning on closing down the survey. We will have the ability for a technician to go out and complete the survey. And then our turnaround from that is we plan on going from, I think in mid-March sometime, releasing the results to everybody. So it's kind of you wouldn't think that's that tight of a turnaround, February 15th to mid-March, probably March 15th. There's a lot of work from our marketing teams and that goes into that to compile the results and get it summarized and get looking pretty,
brother. That seems like a big task. And so just to get a sense of where we are today, roughly how many participants, remind me?
We're right now at right around 1,500 participants so far. I would love to get into the multiple thousands of respondents, but being the first time that we're doing it, I think we're knocking it out of the park so far. Our marketing team has done a phenomenal job with it. My one concern is that of that, it's less than 10% that are collision techs that are responding. So we need to get more collision techs taking that survey, and hopefully we can get some more accurate information back.
Let's do it. Let's see if we can't help with that. And I think everyone listening here is going to feel pretty confident in the collision tech's ability to perform here. What a compelling career path within the automotive industry. And we need to show that, guys. So let's do it. Talk to me about, and you've probably seen how some of these survey results are shaping up. So don't give us any insider information, but what are some predictions of the outcome here? What do you think we're going to see among these surveys, and will any of the outcomes surprise us?
So this is the way that I looked at it going into the survey, was that if it came back and it said exactly what the Bureau of Labor Statistics says, that to me is very alarming, because that tells me that we're not where we should be at in terms of paying our people. My assumption is that it's going to come back quite a bit higher than what the Bureau of Labor Statistics says. And I think what's going to be really interesting to me is if you look at maybe the high earners versus the entry-level folks that are being paid on the low end of the scale, really being able to get to that median, and how far off is that median compared to what the Bureau of Labor Statistics is saying. And my hope is that we can say, hey, this is wrong and it's off by 10 grand, it's off by 15 grand, and that we're able to really paint an accurate picture of what a real technician could see when they're in this field. And hopefully that helps drive some conversation on the education side. Hopefully that drives some awareness for parents that are out there, that this is a lucrative career and that you can make a really, really good living doing this career. And so I'm very hopeful that it comes back and says that. What I'm fearful of is that it comes back and says the same thing that the Bureau of Labor Statistics says. Because if that's the case, we've got a whole other set of issues that we have to attack as an industry, right? But at least we have a base layer of really like a foundational level of numbers and data that we can go off of then, and not always have it in the back of our mind that like that stuff's not real. Like that's not real information. And so, at the end of the day, I think it's going to come back saying that, technicians are paid higher than what the Bureau of Labor Statistics says. And I really, really hope it does, because I think if it came back and it was lower or the same, then we've got a lot of alarms that need to go off.
Oh yeah. More work to do than maybe anticipated. If that's the case, I'm with you. Again, I think only positives come from being able to shine a light and get some clarity on this information, because it is important. It is important with high school students and their parents as they decide on a career path, to be able to shine the automotive technician world and the collision technician world in a positive light is going to go a long way, I think. I want to kind of start to wrap the conversation up around the survey itself. But before I do that, when it comes out, will people be able to track that down?
We'll be posting it all over social media, so you'll be able to find it anywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter even, I think, or X. You'll be able to find that anywhere on the WrenchWay website. We'll have that. Actually, if you go out to wrenchway.com right now, in our resources tab, you can see the link to the Voice of Technician survey. I'm guessing we'll have something similar to that, to where people will be able to get access to it. Hopefully we create enough visibility around it. We've actually been really, really lucky with a lot of our partners that have helped us spread the word. And even being on this podcast with you, Cole, has been really, really helpful. And I think most industry folks see that we're doing it for the right reason. We're doing it to arm the industry with accurate data. So we've been so lucky with our partners. I should mention, we give away a bunch of prizes to incentivize technicians to come on and do it. We know it's going out of their way to do this and fill out this information. We did something similar with that Voice of Technician survey, where we gave away a bunch of stuff. We have been really, really lucky to partner with Milwaukee Tools to give away the grand prize, which is a kind of a master kit of Milwaukee Tools. I'm actually super jealous of it and wish I could get that kit.
You buried really, the really lead, nice. Man. Come on. That's great.
Milwaukee Kirian, which is a tool company with some diagnostic tools that are fantastic. They're helping us out. Our friends at Full Bay, just so many that we've got listed out on our page that are coming to bat with us, and really, I think, starting to see the value in getting this kind of data and just being able to get it freely. I think a lot of times some of this data might be out there, whether it's through an association or through a research type of company, but a lot of times it's through pay barriers that you have to go and get the information and pay a lot of money to get the information. So our goal and intent is to be able to arm the industry with good data that's really readily accessible to anybody that can use it.
Yeah, huge. And thank you guys for doing that. Excited to see the outcome of this survey and look forward to shedding some light on something that I think is going to be very impactful and important for the industry. Zooming out a little bit away from the survey and kind of industry-wide, heading into 2024 and now into 2024, are there any trends that you're watching closely in terms of technicians? Is there anything you're excited about, interested about, any predictions you have for 2024?
I think we continue to get better as an industry. I think when we hear the feedback from technicians, there's still a lot of really negative feedback out there. But what the encouraging piece of this is that we're starting to see more and more comments and more people talk to us about the fact that their shops are better to them now, and they are maybe being looked at with a little bit more respect. So I'm definitely seeing that move in the right direction. I think some of it took us getting backed against a corner to actually change and adapt, but you are starting to see that more. We are starting to see shops that are taking staffing a little bit more seriously. I think it's really easy to let it be a back burner type of thing. And you mentioned macro versus micro. And I think everybody's so focused on the micro and making sure that their shop is taken care of and that they're fully staffed. But what we fail to realize a lot of times is that, Cole, if I go and steal a technician from you and you go steal a tech from the other neighboring shop, then that shop comes and steals a tech from me. And we just kind of created this circus that's out there that is unnecessary in a lot of levels. And I think if we take our side of the micro really, really seriously and we treat our people really well, and we're actually proactive with staffing and we're proactive with the schools and growing our own population of technicians, that we get to a better place, that we actually spend time on one of the things that's, to me, the most important part of your business, which is people. And I talk to a lot of managers, and, it's been funny having these conversations where we'll talk to a leader or a manager and say, hey, you know what? This is a big issue for you. How much time do you spend on this per month? And to hear their answers back, quite frankly, is embarrassing. If the only time they ever spend time on staffing is if they're desperate, if they don't have enough people in the shop, then they'll spend an hour a month doing very reactive type of activities. Whereas, if they actually had some intent behind it and they had a plan behind their staffing strategy and being on top of it so that they don't always end up chasing their tail in a desperate situation, they're going to be miles ahead of where they were at. And we are starting to see it shift. We see shops that are doing their people more proactively, their people strategy. They're actually doing something about it rather than just kind of complaining all the time, right? And I think that's a trend that we're going to continue to see move forward. And we have to, as an industry, we have to spend more time on this. And I'm sure if anybody's out there sat through one of my presentations at any point in time, I say all the time that we oftentimes say people are number one priority, yet they're number 100 on our to-do list. And I think that's starting to move up our to-do list. And that's what's got to happen in order for a lot of our luck to change.
Well, and I don't mean to have it dumbed down too much, but do me the honor, if you would, talk about what being proactive with your staffing strategy does look like. Because I understand people fall into the trap of being reactive there. Hey, we're good. And then that changes one day and you have to be reactive. How can shops be proactive there?
The number one thing, in my opinion, that they can do is have a monthly meeting that's focused on staffing. And when I say a monthly meeting, the leaders within the shop getting together once a month, talking about their staff, talking about, hey, Bob's retiring in 5 years. Do we have a plan for somebody to take Bob's spot? If we don't, then we're going to end up even in maybe a more desperate situation than we are today. What types of training do we need to get our staff in the right place? Who's probably at risk of leaving? Just being able to sit down and have an honest conversation about staffing can be such a great first step to getting you on the right path. And then ultimately from there, if you're able to build out a task list each month out of that meeting and saying, hey, you're going to take this, I'm going to take this, and over the course of the next month, we're going to do these things. And then that next month going back and saying, did we do these things or didn't we do these things? And a lot of times what we see is that you go into that with the best intentions. And I know how chaotic a shop is and how hard it is to put this at the front of the list. But if you can have that almost recentering point each month where you're looking at it, and what we see a lot of times with clients is they do that first monthly meeting, go through, do their next monthly meeting, and none of the stuff got done over the course of that meeting, right? And there's a saying that what's really simple to do is also simple not to do. And I think that's what happens a lot of times is that these little tiny things that you could be doing to move the needle in the right direction just don't get done because they're easy not to do. And I think the more you can work and tweak and refine your strategy, that's what we're talking about with being proactive is each month do something to get yourself a little bit closer. And if you can get your habits and your activities and your actions to reflect what you're saying, you're going to end up in a better place. And so that's ultimately what we're talking about with being proactive is do a little bit at a time to get yourself in a better spot. And so that you're not just lobbing tons of money at Indeed every month, trying to desperately find technicians. Build your own pipeline, develop your people, make sure they're happy, keep them there. We talk about retention all the time, but how often do we actually look at retention and look at ways to keep our technicians happy? That's what we're talking about.
I love the way you put that because it takes such a big, like, insurmountable task, whether it's individually as a shop or as an industry, and breaks it down into, hey, just move it in the right direction a little bit at a time consistently. And to me, every time we talk, I just get more fired up and more excited that, hey, this insurmountable challenge is not so insurmountable. We will get through it. We can get through it. We just got to keep, I use the term again, rowing the boat in the same direction as an industry, and appreciate what you and the team at WrenchWay do for that. Appreciate what you at the Beyond the Wrench podcast do for that as well. Before we start to wrap up, before we get to 3 key takeaways, give us an update on Beyond the Wrench. Give us a reminder of what that is.
Yeah, so it's our industry podcast where we talk about different ways and opportunities to improve the industry. We had actually, as we record this, just released one with a wonderful consultant, industry consultant that is incredibly smart. We had Bogie Latiner on from All Girls Garage last week. She was fantastic, talking about a wide range of topics. But it's all about how do we get this industry in a better place. And I actually have an uncle that he listens to the podcast religiously. And he said, Jay, this podcast, it doesn't matter if you're in automotive. It doesn't matter. Like these business principles that they're sharing apply to anything. And I'm like, yeah, they really, really do. And if, like in anything, you can go into it with an open mind and figure out, take pieces, just like your podcast, take pieces out of it that you can improve your business with. And you just keep working at it, just like we talked about with the monthly meetings. Like the more you can have that growth mindset, I think the better off your business is going to be. And that's what the podcast is all about. How do we help you get better?
Awesome, man. Well, it's a great product. And I love that comment from your uncle. Some brilliant minds in our industry that people from any industry can learn from. And part of what's so much fun doing that, whether it's the Collision Vision or Beyond the Wrench, we get exposure to some incredible people and some really sharp minds who are changing the industry and changing business. And it's a pleasure speaking with one right now, as a matter of fact. So thank you again for everything that you and your team do. With that, as a veteran of the show at this point, we like to wrap up each episode of the Collision Vision with 3 key takeaways. What do you think those are from our conversation today?
I think one is the survey data from the Voice of Technician survey is already out there, right? So go out, get the report, read through it, and don't just skim over it. Actually look at the report and pull things out of it that you can use to improve your business, and be honest with yourself. I think a lot of times maybe I think I'm guilty of this at times where I think I'm better at something than I really am. And if you can really take a look in the mirror and compare that to what the survey response was, I think you can really be able to put yourself in a better position. The second takeaway for me would be to do a monthly meeting. Make sure that you're being proactive with your staffing strategy. A really, really good starting point is to be able to have that monthly meeting, come up with a task list, and be able to continually work on it and hopefully get yourself in a better position. And I think the last takeaway for me is to take the blinders off in terms of looking at other industries as opportunities to see people doing good things in other industries that we can use in our own businesses. And for me, I had mentioned it from the automotive to diesel side, but, we were talking the other day, I was talking with somebody about, nursing has had a shortage forever. And if you look at what they've done with scheduling for nurses and what they've done for just the flexibility in general with nurses to be able to accommodate their schedules, they're miles ahead of us. So I think being able to look at other industries, take notes on what they do well, and really use that in our businesses, I think there's a lot of opportunity for growth.
Love that. 3 killer takeaways. Appreciate your time as always. It's always such a fun conversation when we get together, and just appreciate every minute of it. Remind us where we can follow along with your journey or get in contact with you.
Yeah, you can go out to wrenchway.com and follow everything we're doing with the survey stuff, as well as anything else that we're doing in terms of trying to promote and improve technician careers. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. More than happy to have conversations with anybody that wants to. As you know, Cole, I love talking shop and try to help out people wherever I possibly can. But those are the two best avenues. And before we go, I just wanted to give you a shout out as well. I absolutely love what you're doing for the industry. The podcast is fantastic. The guests that you have are amazing. And everything you said about me, I think times 10 for what you're doing, right? You're doing such an amazing job. And I truly do appreciate having the opportunity to come on the podcast for a third time and really just appreciate the collision community for accepting us in general.
Oh, man, thank you for the kind words. And I'll reiterate, you and I are so lucky. We every week get to speak with just some of the best and brightest in the industry. Jay Goninen, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks again to Jay Goninen of WrenchWay and the Beyond the Wrench podcast for joining us for another episode of the Collision Vision. Before we end today's show, I wanted to reiterate Jay's 3 key takeaways. And those were, number 1, be sure to check out the Voice of Technician data that they released last year and use that information to evaluate you and your business and get a real sense of how you and your team stacks up against the rest of the industry as it relates to being a desirable workplace. Number 2, go ahead and do a monthly staffing meeting. View staffing as something you can be proactive about and not just reactive about. Staffing in itself is a very challenging thing to tackle all at once. So do a little bit each week and hold yourself accountable to make sure you're doing the right things. Lastly, go ahead and take the blinders off from other industries. This is a theme that we've heard regularly on the Collision Vision. I think Mike Anderson brought it up way back when. We're not competing for talent against our industry competitors. We're competing for talent against everybody, the Amazons of the world. Make sure to get a sense of truly what you are competing with, what it looks like outside the industry, and use some of the best practices to make your workplace and your roles the best and most attractive options for your desired candidates. That's all for today's show. Thank you again for tuning in. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Collision Vision wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, on behalf of the Auto Body News team and myself, thank you for coming along for the ride.